Today I'm going to shoot a video about the modifications that I chose to do to my R-Pods. Since I rent them out, there's some modifications that are really specific to making things easier for renting them out, but a lot of these modifications are just great modifications to do across the board. So here's a list of my favorites and why I like them. So the first one here is pretty mandatory. You can see I have added this exhaust clamp hanger deal on here, and this is a really common one that everybody does. Put the good clamps on here and never worry about it again. Another fairly common accessory to put on these things is the screens to go over your heater vents. I don't have one over my water heater vent, but as you can see, this is the furnace, and this has some pretty big holes in it, so to keep bugs out. The next thing on the list is the vent hood. The Maxxair II fan vent cover is excellent, but you can also travel with it cracked open because there's not going to be any wind from the road that's going to catch it and tear it up. Next on the list is bubble levels. You can see this one is not leveled out right now, but I've got one installed on the camper for right to left, and I've got one installed on the tongue jack for front to back. So just makes setting up a little bit easier if you've got them mounted. Okay, so now we're getting into some of the really good hitch and towing accessories. I've got the Recurve R3 on this one, but so a weight distribution hitch is really a critical item to have. It really helps stabilize these things and worth every penny. And then especially since I'm renting these out, I'm sending them out with a lot of people that, if nothing else, have not towed my camper before. Even if they've done lots of towing or who knows what, they certainly haven't towed my camper before. So kind of giving people every advantage they can have seems like a really good idea. And if you'll notice here, right while we're in this area, I also have the brake controller. This is the Autowbrake brake controller. I love these because they install real neatly right on the frame rail, and they tee in, and you're not even gonna be able to see much here, but they just tee into the main harness, and they just kind of do their own thing. If they're not needed, if they see a brake controller, they just go inactive. But if a brake controller is needed, and I would say about 80% of the people that rent my campers do not have a brake controller. So think about that, 80%. So I'm hitting a huge market that would otherwise have to go install a brake controller or pick somebody else's camper that maybe has this brake controller. These are about $350. I've been very happy with them. So they're not cheap, but I've been very happy with them, and so I've got them on all three of my campers, and absolutely first thing that goes on. They never leave before they've got one installed. Another little note here is these coily Breakaway cables. The ones that come on, they're again, for me renting these out, these are getting hitched up to a lot of different vehicles, and it blows my mind the variance in where they get hooked up and the length that's needed. And when it's not the coily cable, you don't want it dragging, but you also don't want it pulling the pin out when you go around a corner. So these little coily cables have been phenomenal. Just such a simple little thing, but they just take the variable nature out of the fixed cables that are not coily. So another good mod. Another mod that I love to put on these things because it is so handy is this keyless door handle. Initially, I didn't think it would necessarily be a good fit for renting it out, and I quickly changed my mind. It is just so convenient both when we use a camper as well as for anybody that rents one. So just a top-notch feature to add, and people really love it too. They don't have to carry around the keys. Like, it just makes everything handy. Typical camping, it's not uncommon that it's like, oh, I'm running to the bathroom, you're going to the beach, who's got the keys, you know, where are you going to be? And none of that matters anymore when you have this. Everybody can go run in and out, the kids can run in and out. Just makes things super convenient. I have installed rearview observation cameras on all three of my campers. This one, the 2021 193, was the first one to get it because it came prepped for the Furrion camera. So I just bought the Furrion camera. I got a halfway decent deal on it, but it was still $550. So not cheap, but I got it. It was prepped for it. Seemed like it made sense, and I've been happy with it. I don't have too many complaints. The monitor's not real bright. Got a couple minor complaints, but overall it functions well. So I recommend a rearview observation camera. However, after I put one on the next camper, on the 2020 190, I put a different model up, and I'll put links to all these things in the description. But that is now the one that I get. I've now put one on my 2021 190. It costs less than half as much and I think it functions a little bit better. It also just feels like a higher quality camera. The housings are metal for both the camera and the monitor. I've got no functionality issues with either one of them, but then when you factor in that the cost is less than half on this other model, Halo View, I would absolutely, and I have gotten the Halo View again. So the Halo View is my preference. I've run them back to back. We've got the Furrion on the camper. We usually use the 193, and I prefer the Halo View on the 190s. So, and that's another thing where, you know, you're sending it out with somebody. These 190s aren't super wide. You can see around them pretty good in most vehicles, but when I can send it out with a rear view observation camera to take a few more chances out of the game, you know, I don't want somebody backing into something. It doesn't work out good for anybody. So, in my opinion, it's money well spent. And side note, Halo View actually makes an adapter to hijack the Furrion mount. So even if your camper comes with the Furrion mount, you can get the Halo View and buy the adapter and put a Halo View on it, which is exactly what I would do now, having had both. We are inside the 2021 190, and something that I've installed on all three of my campers is a hardwired surge protector. The reason I opted for the hardwired one is because it just takes all the guesswork out. Nobody's gonna forget to plug it in, nobody's gonna lose it, nobody's gonna steal it. It's just installed and it just works. I've varied the way I've installed it, and now this one, my latest camper, this is my favorite way to install it. So mostly you can't see it because it is mounted back behind this panel, right where the power comes in. I know some people put them right off the power converter. I put mine right off the line in. So right where that plug is on the outside, there's about a foot of wire that goes into the surge protector, and then the camper wiring hooks up to that and proceeds. So it's right off the input line. What I've done differently on this one is I installed the little display right up in here. It's a little dark, but you can see the display's right in there. The reason that I did that is because nobody really needs to know anything about it unless there's a problem or something like that. Sometimes people call me up and they'll say, you know, like the AC is not working or something, we're plugged into shore power. Well, I can have them look at this display and tell me, is it lit up? Obviously right now we're not plugged in and it is not lit up. Well, if they call me up and I have them look at it and it's not lit up, well, maybe they forgot to turn the breaker on, maybe there's some other problem, but yeah, so I'll kind of use it for troubleshooting like that. Also, there's a switch on it, bypass mode or not, and you would want to put it in bypass mode if you're running off a generator. So sometimes somebody does need to do that, but if it's outside and accessible and, you know, you might bump it, you might mess with it when you shouldn't, either way, it kind of takes a little bit more chance out of the equation if I kind of tuck it in here. It's available if you need it, but you know, nobody's gonna mess with it because they don't even know it's there. While we're in here, another thing that I've done, and I maybe haven't quite finished this off yet, but when I got this thing, there was like no space in here. You can see two screw holes here. That's where the wall was. There was literally like, maybe 3 inches going to 4 on the other side of space because they blocked off all the utilities, which I get. So what I did, one of the first things I did is I just unscrewed it, and I don't know if I even had to modify this one. I unscrewed it and I just pushed it back. So now some plumbing's exposed, and the thing I haven't done is I'm maybe going to use some spray foam or something and just kind of seal this area off so nothing falls down in here unintentionally. The way that I have it packed, nothing will fall down in there anyways, so it hasn't really been an issue for me, but theoretically something could fall in there. You can see how I have it packed up. So yeah, it works out just fine for me, but just a little modification. Space is just at a premium in these things, and so it's crazy to me how they've blocked off some of these areas and just eliminated usable space. So another little mod there. Another little handy thing is a paper towel holder. I've added paper towel holders to all 3 of my campers. I've also added command strip hooks. I don't have tons of them in this camper, but here we are in the bathroom, and just adding a couple simple command strip hooks works extremely well for towels or whatever. I've got the junk drawer, as they call it, with some basic stuff that goes out with all the campers. One of the best things though is these little suction cup hooks that I throw them in here, but what we use them for is throwing on the outside of the camper to hang up swim trunks or towels or anything like that. Just a super little handy thing to have along. You could even hang a garbage bag if you didn't load it too much up with stuff. But yeah, those little suction cup hooks are great. I've added brooms and broom holders. These are just little adhesive backed deals, so nothing too fancy. And I think generally you might only use one, but I think in the camper application, 2 of them is pretty critical. So when you're going down the road, they do stay there. Sometimes they'll scoot down a little bit and I'll see the broom sitting on the floor, but just a handy little thing to add. Also, I have added fly swatters because unfortunately flies seem to go hand in hand with camping. So I've Velcroed those up to the wall there. Speaking of Velcro, I've also Velcroed the remotes for the DVD player and the TV right on the wall there, just to help keep them from going missing, whether by accident or anything else. It's just handy when they're right there. They're right where you need them. I also send out all 3 of these campers with little electric heaters. I think these are about $15 from Walmart. They've got a little safety switch on the bottom so they don't run unless they're setting down. In the R-Pods, you can plug them in right there, and literally this is where we set them. Probably looks huge, but it's a pretty tiny little heater, and they work excellent in this size camper, whether it be the 193 or the 190s, the 193 of course being a little bigger, but they have plenty of heat for the seasons we're camping in. And we've camped in some pretty cool weather, but they work great. And the reason that we prefer these is, number one, they're significantly quieter than the furnaces that come in these things. But then secondly, when you've paid for an electric site and you have an electric hookup, then you've already paid for it and you're not burning the propane that you've got in the tank on the front. So it's kind of a win-win. You're using power you've already paid for, and they're quieter, and they just do a great job of heating these units. So that's a must-have that I have in all of my campers. Another thing that goes out with all the campers is a drill with a socket on it to run the stabilizer jacks. It just makes things so much more convenient that I think it's well worth it to just send out a drill with every camper. Another huge upgrade is the mattress. The mattresses that come in these things have a pretty short life with much use. They just literally get like flat spots in them, and they're like, I sleep anywhere. I honestly don't have any trouble sleeping on one of the mattresses that comes in these, but if you're going to spend much time in one of these things, you'll probably want to upgrade the mattress. We got a mattress from Original Mattress Factory, and I believe it was about $450. We got, I can't remember where it fell in the line of things. You can spend as much money as you want. We wanted a good mattress, but we didn't want to spend an unreasonable amount of money. So $450 was not cheap, but it was a really nice upgrade. I haven't put one of these in all 3 campers yet. This is the oldest camper, the 2020 190, and it's sort of as needed all upgrade. When it comes to R-Pods, tires are a frequently discussed thing. I have not had tire troubles. I've got the factory Castle Rocks from China on 2 of the 3 campers. The 2021s still have the Castle Rocks, and their load range D. I have heard a few different rumors. One is that they had trouble with the 14-inch wheels that they put on R-Pods a while ago, and that when they went to the 15s, the problem mostly went away. I've also heard that they put some load range Cs, I believe, but I've heard if you've got the Ds, the load range Ds, you probably aren't going to have any trouble. I haven't had trouble. I had load range Ds on all 3 of my campers, but I did just upgrade tires on the 2020, which I will show you. So here is the 2020 190, and I just put these Goodyear Endurance tires on it. This seems to be the most popular tire people like to upgrade to, and this is a load range E, so it's 1 up from what it came with, and just a good reputable tire. I've only pulled it once, and so I don't, some people say they notice this huge improvement when they go from the factory tires to these Goodyear Endurance. I don't know that I can say that, but I wouldn't deny any change. I just don't pull this one enough, and I didn't do like a back-to-back before and after, so objectively I can't tell you for sure that it's an improvement, but it should be a nice upgrade nonetheless. So this is sort of a bonus upgrade because this one's a unique one that I have made myself for 2 of the campers. I put this mounting point on here for a bike rack. I've got 2 Yakima bike racks, and I specifically built this for them. I took the adapter off the Yakima rack that normally goes into the receiver on a vehicle, and so then I just had a vertical, they're just kind of an L shape flipped upside down, so it just sticks right in the top here. I put 2 bolts in to bolt it to this bracket. The bracket is fabricated out of some pretty, I don't know, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I think it's 3/16 angle iron. like 2.5 by 2.5, welded straight to the frame. And then there's a brace that runs diagonal. So this is locked in pretty good. It looks really close, and intentionally it's close to the camper, so because you don't have a lot of room to work with here. And so it needed to be close to the camper. The bikes do not hit the camper. I actually had somebody put a bike rack on the back of one of my campers, and they scratched up one of the decals. So I've had more trouble with bike racks on the back. So since then, I just don't allow a bike rack on the back. But I do have on 2 of mine, I've got these, and for a fee, I'll put my bike rack on, and you can put up to 4 bikes on the front of this thing, and it has worked out very well for us and everybody that's used it. So not something, you're not going to be able to, unless you can fab it up, you're not going to be able to duplicate what I've done here. But it's worked out well for me, and there's a couple different options. But a bike rack on the front is definitely a handy feature. Really like these suction cup hooks. So this thing, you will not be impressed at the craftsmanship here, but it's functional. So I took a paper towel roll holder and I cut down a couple of those and epoxied, and then threw a couple zip ties over. And the zip ties are really meant just to hold all the epoxy cured, but the particular paper towel holders that I got, I'm having trouble finding anything that adheres to them well. So I think I'm just going to leave the zip ties on. But so here you go. Stick that on there, flip it down, and now you have a nice paper towel roll holder anywhere you want it. And we seem to use paper towels on the outside of our camper more than we do on the inside. So we put this to good use. You can stick it on the door, you can stick it on the window, you can stick it on the side of the camper, and then when you're all done, you can pretty quickly, harder with one hand, but you can quickly pull it off and pack it back in your campers. Another thing here in the 2021 193 is there was a panel that screwed on to the front of the love seat, or whatever you want to call it, and it looked nice. I would say it gave it a little bit more of a finished look, but it was an incredible waste of space. Right now the slide out is out, and you can see how much space is under here, and it's super usable floor space. What we do actually is our clothes we pack up in kind of these cloth baskets, and we tuck them. The 4 of us, we've got 4 of these baskets, and they're like the perfect height for this, so we tuck them all under there. And then it's even more of a waste of space when you run the slide out in for traveling. The baskets just still stay under there. So that's been a really useful space that was blocked up. The only thing to note is there are some wires under there, and I neatened them up a little bit more, added a few more zip ties. So you want to be careful. You don't want to tear any wires off or anything, but that has not been a problem, and the space has been phenomenal. So highly recommend removing that if you want some additional space. The next mod here, we're in the 193 now, although I've done the same thing in both of my 190s, but I removed the closet rod, and putting shelves in is the way to go for us. So I've taken an oak strip and screwed and glued it to the wall, and then glued shelving on, and this is just laminate shelving from Menards that matched good enough. So anyways, I've done that in all 3 campers. Gets put to way better use than as they were equipped from the factory with the closet rod. Last upgrade on the list is the Oxygenetics shower head.